So welcome to the first plenary session on the potential and possibilities of public libraries. Globally, today public libraries have graduated from their traditional role of providing book lending and reference services to organizing events for their clientele across gender and age groups, hosting makers' spaces, being one of the delivery points for government services and schemes, and exhibiting and preserving local culture. So the potential of public libraries, as you can see, is vast, and the possibilities are, of course, endless. Of late, libraries are being seen as one of the key institutions to deliver sustainable development goals. Across the globe, evidence shows that whenever a country decides to move on the path of creating knowledge economy, substantive focus is placed on creating knowledge societies, and public libraries are seen as institutions worth investing in to develop that social fabric. So in line with this view, our session will focus on public library success stories, best practices from across the world, Government of India's efforts in strengthening the Indian public library system, the public library's role in creating a knowledge society, and showcasing the potential and possibilities of public libraries in transforming society. So we have as speakers for this session Ms. Christine McKenzie, President-elect, IFLA, Dr. Arun Kumar Chakraborty, Director General Raja Ram Mohan Roy Library Foundation, Ms. June Garcia, Global Consultant for Public Libraries, and Mr. S.C. Bihar, the former Chief Secretary, Government of Madhya Pradesh. Chairing this session will be Professor P.B. Mangla, who's a Tagore National Fellow from the Ministry of Culture, Government of India, while Mr. Shrikant Sinha, CEO, NASSCOM Foundation, will help us moderate the panel discussion. So I'd like to now invite Professor Mangla to please make the opening remarks. Professor Mangla, as I mentioned before, is the only academic in India who has been honored with the National Tagore Fellowship. At the University of Delhi, he was a student of Dr. S.R. Ranganathan, the father of library science and library movement in India. And later, for almost 4 decades, he served the University of Delhi, of which 29 years were as Professor of Library and Information Service Science. So if I could request Professor Mangla to please make the opening remarks. We have a microphone there, sir, if you'd like to use one from there, or if you'd like to come up and speak from the podium.
Good afternoon, friends. My dear friends on the dais, professional colleagues from India and from outside India, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I convey my sincere thanks to the organizers of IPLM for having given me an opportunity to be here on this occasion. Actually, I was trying to recall that the 3 times they have held the conference here, I have been associated all 3 times. And there may be many reasons. Professional, of course, is one main reason for participation and interest in the whole function. But when it comes to public library, I'm always reminded, somebody asked me the other day, how did you enter the profession of library science? You are not a person who can be interested in this profession. I say, why not? And the reason that I got interested in library science was that I was a regular visitor of a public library in the state. In those days, it was a princely state in Punjab. And all of a sudden, one day, I found that the librarian was all the time very actively interacting with the users, busy in reading books, and I thought, why not? This is a good profession. I was a student who was just qualifying for my graduation. Without going into details, because time is a factor, maybe I'll have a chance to communicate with you sometime on all these issues. But I finally got interested in the profession, got admission in Delhi University, had the biggest advantage of my life to be a student of Dr. Ranganathan. And after that, I did start teaching history. That was my main subject. But again, it was something like a public library development which brought me back to library profession. To an audience like this, I don't have to tell what is a public library, what is the role of a public library. All of you are well educated about it. And since morning, very eminent speakers have given wonderful speeches, I admire. Excepting that, I will only like to reiterate. Whenever I think of a public library, I think of Johnson. Sometime in 1938, he brought out a book, and People's University, a public library. It was difficult to believe at that time that there could be something like a People's University. He emphasized on it, and it continues to be a People's University. And also, when you study more, I had a project on public library service in Delhi as a Tagore National Fellow, and again I said, a public library is an institution, without going into many of these details, which is of the people, for the people, and by the people. It is in that context, my dear friends, all of you who are participating in this conference, you will appreciate that a public library is a free public library service. It is to be organized in a proper manner, with proper support, with continuity, and that's why we emphasize on the need for public library law. And of course, it is an institution which has to be properly funded. It is not a commercial organization that we charge subscription and we spend money. It is something like a social responsibility of a democratic government. It is a concept which makes you think in terms of providing literacy, maintaining literacy, spreading education, and it is in the overall socio-economic development of society and a democratic setup. It is in that context, my dear friends, I want to again and again sensitize people that please look at it from a very pragmatic angle. Try to understand it is a social institution, and for that purpose, our responsibility is that we must make people understand. We talk of knowledge society, we talk of information society. Let us not make these terms to be just terminological phenomena. We must sensitize people about what they can do, and it is there our responsibility. I really feel very happy that IPLM is playing a very prominent role. When I look at the development of the public library movement in the country, I don't have to go into the details of history, excepting that let us admire people like Sayaji Rao, the princely ruler of Baroda, who in 1910 started a public library movement in this state. Later on, people like Ranganathan, I still admire and admire, not I, but everyone, that a man who had even started giving a public library notion on a cycle in a bullock cart. And in 1948, the man brought the public library law in the country. And this is where the whole system started. Later on, after independence, of course, we have important developments like 1957 report, Advisory Committee report, which emphasized, re-emphasized, and my dear friends, can you believe that the chairman was a non-librarian, the secretary was a non-librarian. They interacted with the people in the profession all over the country. And they gave a report. One Mr. Sinha was the chairman, and one Sardar Sohan Singh was advisor in the government of India. And he was a very prominent person to play a role in the development of public library movement in the country. 1966, we had the new education policy under Dr. Kothari, again we emphasized. And later on, we had the National Policy on Library and Information Systems, of which again I was a member, and that was when Dr. D.P. Chattopadhyay was the chairman. We gave a report which was published in 1986. In between, I had become a member secretary of the Planning Commission Working Group on Development of Libraries and Informatics, modernization of libraries and informatics for the 7th five-year plan. And later on, the National Knowledge Commission, recommendations, and now in the morning, rightly, it has been mentioned that National Mission on Libraries has been established. We have been associated with all these developments. My dear friends, I like to mention in a program like within the shortest possible time that we have been talking about it. We have been mentioning about it. Now it is the time that we just do not only talk, we try to take steps, and very concrete steps how to make things function, to sustain what we have achieved, and also not only to sustain but to make things move further. We today have about 20 states with public library law, but when I travel around this country, I find that most of the states, particularly North India, have not even taken steps to implement it. It is in this context, simply just discussing is an important component of our professional responsibility. But in addition to deciding, taking decisions, making recommendations, one of the major responsibilities is that we must ensure that the decisions we take, they are properly implemented. Can you believe that one of the very important organizations in public library movement is Raja Ram Mohan Rai Library Foundation, about which much has been mentioned. In 72, I still remember all of a sudden I one day got a call that there was a meeting in the Ministry of Education when Professor Nurul Hasan at that time was the education minister, and they were discussing and they asked, what can we do to commemorate the second centenary of Raja Ram Mohan Rai, and all of us agreed that we should have an institution, an organization for development of public library, a unique organization and something which can contribute a lot, but responsibility is immense, and simply things will not move until unless we make them move. My dear friends, there are participants. I like to invite our panelists to talk about it, and later on you will have a chance to interact, and then we will come to certain conclusions. But my request to all of you will be an active participant in the country and see in what best possible manner public library movement can just not remain on paper, but it really takes a shape and service to everyone, everywhere, and in what best possible manner we can provide. Now I'll stop here because the time is a very important factor in the whole program, and now I request further the moderator, Dr. Sinha, to have a word with you on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mangla. Thanks for your opening remarks. In fact, you have been heading the public libraries movement and actually opening new chapter after chapter in that, and we are grateful for you accepting our request and being here amongst us today. The panel itself, if you look at the possibilities and what it can hold, it's immense. And that's the reason why today we have put across a panel, and a panel which could not have been better than the people who are there with us today. And I would introduce each and every panelist as they walk up, and now I'd like to request Christine McKenzie, President-elect IFLA, to share with us her thoughts about it. Christine, as we mentioned, is the President-elect of International Federation for Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA. IFLA is the leading international body representing the interests of libraries and information services and their users. It's the global voice of libraries and information profession. She herself has got over 40 years of experience in the public libraries domain. And ladies and gentlemen, you could not have had a better person talking about the possibilities. Over to you, Christine.
Thank you so much. And may I acknowledge the distinguished guests and speakers here today. And I'd especially like to thank Dr. Shadi Shadrach and Mr. P.J. Rajan from the IPLM for inviting me to your conference. I bring greetings from IFLA, from our President, Gloria Perez-Salmeron, and the Secretary-General, Gerald Leitner. Dear colleagues, dear friends, good afternoon. Namaste. I am delighted to be here with you today. This is my first official appearance as President-elect of IFLA, and I'm so happy that it's here in New Delhi. And as was just mentioned, I've 40 years as a public librarian, so it's particularly nice to be at a public library conference. We were very pleased that the INELI India folk chose to have their convening in Melbourne this March, and we were delighted to host 43 Indian librarians. And I know some of you have already stood up, but would the people who came to Melbourne like to stand up? Because I've said hello to some of you already. It was such a nice thing to have you in Melbourne. And you were so energetic and you were enthusiastic, and you packed so much into 1 week, more than I thought possible. And the final delight was the Bollywood dancing at the end of the convening. It was fabulous. And I hope my presence here in your country will spur on my fellow countrymen who are currently getting a jolly good drubbing in the cricket. I think they could do with some of your energy. I was asked today to talk about the SDGs and also the role of IFLA, so I'll start with the SDGs. So I wanted to talk to you about how important libraries are, but more importantly, how important librarians are, because without librarians, there are no libraries. At the IFLA conference in Wroclaw in August, I gave a presentation on how the libraries in the Asia-Oceania region are contributing to their country's United Nations 2030 agendas. The presentation highlighted some wonderful examples of what libraries are doing, and I had so many stories to tell, and this is just a very small sample. And I'd like to thank Priyanka Mohan, who gave some examples from INELI India participants. And what was so good to hear was how the projects you are undertaking are also aligned to the agenda of your Prime Minister, and mention's been made of that already this morning. This is very smart thinking, and the best way of getting attention to the potential that libraries have to achieve the SDGs. In my presentation, I told about the Indian National Literacy Mission that was launched in 1988, and I understand from this morning that's been recently updated, and that aims at attaining a literacy rate of 41% by 2035. In July this year, your Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, dedicated a month to the mission, and in support of this initiative, 43 INELI India innovators reached out to their users and non-users. And here are some examples I shared in Wroclaw of how libraries are promoting the literacy mission. The Delhi Public Library held interactive sessions with young adults and women prisoners at the Tihar Central Jail. These prisoners were not using the in-house libraries. To promote reading and to improve their skills, INELI innovators are encouraging them to visit the in-house jail library. Many of the prisoners are illiterate and are now supported by those inmates who can read. The District Library of Amritsar reaches out to women in partnership with local NGOs. The innovator is creating awareness to these women that libraries are a social institution to access information for free and that their skills can also be improved. The Divisional Public Library of Kota has connected with slum children to promote reading habits through poetry and storytelling sessions. Digital India, again something that's already been mentioned a couple of times this morning, another government initiative that was launched in 2015 and is a campaign by the government to ensure that government services are made available to citizens electronically by improving online infrastructure and by increasing internet connectivity. Again, librarians are supporting this campaign in various ways. Free Wi-Fi and internet are available in some libraries across India, providing internet access to students who would not otherwise be able to afford it. Assistance is also provided to people, especially to women and senior citizens, so they can use the internet for various purposes, including filling out government forms and checking emails. The State Central Library of Chandrahar has introduced an Elders Awareness program and runs legal and financial literacy and smartphone usage and a weekly computer and smartphone learning classes for senior citizens in partnership with Help Page India. I'm sure many of your libraries are doing similar things. I also told stories from other countries, from Fiji, where a librarian is running a Sunday book club from her front porch. This is a reading program from children for one of the poorest settlements in Suva, and the aim is to foster a lifelong love of books and reading in children within the community while having fun doing it. With more children turning up each Sunday, she has begun to train parents to help with growing numbers through reading to children and supporting them through the literacy activities after each story time. She hopes to be able to expand this program to other suburbs within Suva in the future, sharing the love of books and reading to children in Fiji. Another story I told was from Papua New Guinea. Book Bilong Pikanini, which translates as Books for Children, was established in 2007 to help increase literacy rates in Papua New Guinea by setting up children's libraries in community-based localities. This was achieved largely by one person who saw a problem and did something. There are now 11 libraries with 2,000 books each. You can check out this presentation that I did at IFLA, and I've put it on my website. So what these librarians are doing is design thinking. They probably don't realise that, but they are. Design thinking is a new way of implementing services and programs. It has been developed for libraries by Aarhus Library in Denmark and Chicago Public Library, and they worked with a company called IDEO to produce a toolkit to help libraries around the world innovate. But, as they say, it's not rocket science. These are some of the steps that need to be taken. Firstly, you look at the problem. Then you engage with the community to come up with ideas. Talk with them and watch what they do. Then pick some ideas and try them. This is called prototyping. It's a fancy name for something that we just do every day, don't we? If you start small, then if it works, you can grow it, and if it doesn't, there hasn't been any harm done. I hope these examples will help you think about how you can work with your communities to make a difference. As well as talking about libraries and the SDGs, I was asked to talk today about what IFLA can offer in the way of support to help grow the Indian public library movement. Well, IFLA can indeed help. In fact, this week, Ingrid Bond from IFLA headquarters is meeting with around 25 school librarians not too far from here to set up a school library association through the Building Strong Library Association program. As Ingrid told me, this new association is very important as school and public libraries form the foundation in literacy and numeracy skills, and most important, to discover the pleasure of reading and having access to knowledge. In 2019, SDG 4, Education, will be one of the topics at the high-level political forum at the United Nations. During this high-level political forum, reports from several countries will be presented. This may be an opportunity for you to get a seat at the table of government. The other big program that IFLA offers is the International Advocacy Program, which is launched in 2016. This is a new capacity building program designed to promote and support the role libraries can play in the planning and implementation of the United Nations 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. The objectives of the IAP are to raise the level of awareness on the SDGs of library workers at community, national and regional levels, and to promote the important role libraries can play in the development by contributing to the UN 2030 Agenda and the SDGs. And the second objective is to increase the participation of library associations and public library representatives in advocacy work at national and regional levels to secure sustainable public access to information through library services and programs. 6 regional workshops have already been held, and while there were no participants for India, all the material is available and you are very welcome to contact Ingrid or to access the material available on the IFLA website. And there's also been a call out for IAP projects, which just closed on Friday, I think. But I do understand that there has been an application made on behalf of Indian public libraries. The third program is around leadership capacity development for librarians, and IFLA is interested to work with INELI to develop new models of leadership training. The other thing that was I enjoyed at morning tea time was to go to the booth that's been set up to vote for the online for the Global Vision. So if you're not familiar with this Global Vision, we want to understand what every librarian in the world thinks about libraries and librarianship. And so this is your big chance to have a vote. And so wouldn't it be wonderful if we could say, yes, there were 400 or 500 extra votes from India as a result of our conference today. So if you get a chance this afternoon, there's people there to help go through the voting process, or if you take a note of the website, globalvision.ifla.org/vote. Please do that on your mobile phone or on your laptop or whatever. We would love to hear what you think, and we're interested in gathering from countries and regions and around the world. So please vote. So I would say the future is in your hands, and I would be feeling optimistic if I were you. Programs being run by librarians here are powerful and effective and aligned with the government's agenda. If you can keep on developing your advocacy skills, map the programs and services being offered by libraries to the SDGs, and use that same language when developing library plans and frameworks for action, you can make a real difference to Indian public libraries, and more importantly, to community members. You know how important education, literacy, and access to information is. That's why you're librarians. It is up to every one of us to do the best we can to make a difference. Don't leave it to others. Imagine what you can do and then do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for your thoughts. Now I'll request the DG RRF, Dr. Arun Chakravarti. He has got over 26 plus years in library sciences profession. He's a pioneer in implementing open source and free software for library automation and digitization in scientific libraries. Dr. Chakravarti, over to you.
Good afternoon. It is a great pleasure to be here because IPLM has organized a very well-organized conference and we are associated with this. So I'm really grateful to the IPLM for giving us opportunity to be associated with us. Respected our chairman, sir, Professor P.V. Bangla, our teacher, Revered, and then Shakti Sinha, Sikant Sinha ji, then madam from IFLA, then USA persons and the chief secretary, and all other dignitaries or my teachers, all who are sitting here, and our directors whom we are working with them. So it is a very nice, excellent gathering where we are here. Actually, I have not come for as a speaker, so I am just for the listener, because I have been working with the public libraries, and we are supposed to be executing agency of Ministry of Culture, Raja Raman Roy Library Foundation. So whatever the Ministry of Culture give us a guidance, and then whatever guidance and advice we get, we are supposed to execute that one. So when the executive agency, they cannot speak anything because there will be a huge number of requests and all, because once you work, there will be a lot of work. Should be one work will give you multiplication of works. So that way, so we get multiplication. So that is why I'm just able to want to listen to from our respective different directors have come, the ministries people have come, and they'll see that how public library can move further for the development of the country, for the inclusive knowledge society, and to reach unreach. So that's, and our board of members are also there. I can just tell you that from 2010-11, we have a budget of around 25 crores, and then we are supporting around 12,000 libraries. And at present, around 2016-17, our budget is around 48 crores, and we are supporting more than 17,000 libraries. So we are growing slowly or whatever. So that's, you can see that every year some of the growth is already there in the states and all. And as you know that, already spoken that we have already, whatever the growth or the library legislations, everything is there. Still, the library, though it is library legislations are there, but still we are not able to implement all these legislations. You will find there are a lot of states who are having the legislation, but is not implementing. So library is a state subject, all of you know in the education, and then if we have to work together with the states, and then we have to activate the states, and whatever the proposal comes from the states, we always take advantage. Immediately, we try to execute. So that is always required. We have to work hand in hand. So that is the most important part, and the state authority who are here, they have to take the action, and let us see that how we can implement things in a better fashion. That is the most important. And we have different challenges like financial constraints, trained manpower, services and delivery mechanism, then community engagement, visibility of the public libraries, footfall in the libraries. That is most important, because whenever you ask for the money, they will ask you that how much footfall in your library. Now I have converted it as a footfall to fingerfall, because we are, as a National Mission on Libraries, we are creating the National Virtual Library of India. People are visiting, online resources are available. So that way, so it is a footfall, is also transmitted to the fingerfall. Then internet services with Wi-Fi facility, there is a lot of demand. Then modernization, then networking of public libraries. Then there is a demand of the e-resources. Then structured skill development program. These are the different challenges, whatever we have been gathering after providing different services to the, or interacting with the people. So this is the platform for us to know how we can go much and what is to be done, how we can do execution, because it has to be reach and unreach. I'll not go into that, to whom to reach, to whom not to reach, because we have to reach the user and we have to reach the top, because it has to be also that until unless we get some of the support from the top, we cannot reach the down. So that's what has to flow. So how to reach and unreach, we have to, all of us have to work together, and that is why we need everybody's support. Public library is a public movement. Until the public movement, public demand is not there, we will not able to sustain. So we have to create a public demand, public sustenance. So with a few words, thank you very much for giving me opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Chakravarti. Now I request June Garcia. June has got over 40 years of experience as a public librarian. She is the force behind the INLE program that all of us have been talking about. June, over to you.
Thank you. It's hard to believe that 47 years ago, when I was in library school, I learned about the laws of library service by Ranganathan. Can't believe that I'm currently in India. Who could have thought it? So, I'd like to talk to you this morning briefly about some of the things that public libraries are doing around the world. And I deliberately excluded from this presentation what's happening in India because far better than I do. But first, a few assumptions. First, the excellence in public libraries must be locally defined. What's excellent in Delhi is not what's excellent necessarily in Denver. It has to be aligned with local needs. It's also possible for libraries that are large and libraries that are small. When I was a young librarian, we thought the libraries that were the best libraries were the biggest ones because they had the most stuff. They had the most books. No longer true. It wasn't true then either, but we thought it was. And excellence is a moving target. No sooner do you think you get there, but the target keeps changing. Technology changes. People's needs change. Communities change. So what are libraries doing to meet those community needs? I've only selected a few key areas. Of course, it's essential that people in our community know how to read and write. And libraries are offering classes, whether it be one-on-one, whether it be computers, but they're also doing things like in Nigeria, where they've reached out to the street boys, homeless, illiterate, young men, in this case, who can't read, have no place to live, and the library's not only made them feel welcome, they're teaching them how to read, and they're helping them develop skills. In this library, it's not a library, in this community, they're placing books and computers in laundromats where people have to go to get their clothes cleaned. It's really boring to sit in the laundromat for 2 hours with nothing to do. And so they're reaching out that way to their community. In Romania, this looks like an amazing library. It's not. That's a painted wall with QR codes where people can download free books from while they're waiting to get on the subway train and then read them. In my community, we're taking books out to events, downtown malls, checking out library cards or creating library cards, checking out books, and letting people connect to the internet, all through this little tiny book bike. This kid is really strong to pedal this thing around town. In Mount Juliet, USA, they actually cut up a book, something I'm not really very fond of cutting up, but they placed this book, as you can see some of the pages, around a walking trail so that families could walk from place to place, read the story, and get healthy at the same time. Meanwhile, all presenting the library in a good light. Making informed decisions. How do we help our communities get the information they need to live healthy, happy, productive lives? Well, I just thought I had to include this mommy and baby yoga. You as Indians know much more about yoga than these moms do, but the library's showing them that living a healthy lifestyle is a good thing to do. In Pima County Library, they actually have a visiting nurse who comes a couple times a week, does blood pressure checks, refers people to various other services, and helps them understand how important it is for healthy lives. You don't necessarily think that a library is going to include a nurse, but why not? Kampala, reaching out to teen moms, helping them get information about caring for themselves before their baby is born, caring for their babies after they're born, and equally important, developing skills so they can enter the job market to take care of themselves and their babies. Here, Biblio Bistro goes out into the community. This is actually a stove that they take out into community events to help people about how to cook, healthy cooking, healthy living, and at the same time, of course, promotes the library, promotes library services, and promotes books about cooking. Urban farming in Uganda, helping people develop healthy lifestyle again by teaching them how they can grow crops, raise animals, do fish farming, so that they don't have to rely on food from supermarkets, but can not only grow enough for their own families, but perhaps make a little money by sharing with others. I love this idea of adulting. I wish when I was a kid that someone had taught me how to be an adult. Actually, it'd be helpful if they taught me now. But teaching classes on financial literacy, how to manage your money, relationship advice, lots of things that young teenagers don't necessarily get from their parents or their community anymore. The libraries are helping by bringing in speakers and encouraging young people to acquire those skills. And then managing money. None of us have enough, but how do we budget? How do we save, if at all possible? How can we plan for retirement? All the issues around credit and debt. So libraries are taking an active role in this, again, depending on the community. Finding jobs. Whether it be helping the weavers in Guatemala learn how to promote the sale of their materials, how to manage their money, how to sell things online. With those basic IT skills, the library is there. In Nigeria, the little job market, helping young people develop interview skills, put together a resume, and then find a job. These young entrepreneurs are actually taking a class at the library to learn how to market their materials and to how to price them. They're so cute, so young. Same thing in St. Lucia, job markets, teaching resume skills, and encouraging, in this case, young women to enter the job field. And this is a really interesting program. These are small business people, and one of the things that the library has the most demand on are portable walls. These are things that are on wheels that people can borrow and create a little space within the library to hold their own meetings. And it's incredibly popular. Technology. Classes everywhere on ITC skills aren't unusual, but helping people do more with their iPads and tablets than just play games or watch videos. In Fraser Valley, Canada, they wanted their community to realize that libraries were very involved in technology and could help them make informed technology decisions. So they created this vehicle that goes out to parks and to parades and to farmers markets. And you can actually set up the devices on the front of the vehicle. They have benches, they have loudspeakers, and they teach people how to use technology, while at the same time, they're encouraging people to think of the library in that regard, and of course, to get a library card and come in. Here in Chile, where's Pilar? In Chile, going out to farmers, where the farmers actually are, out in the fields, teaching them how to use ITC and how they can get information that will help them with their farm. And how do we know what type of technology to buy? Well, in the Netherlands, they have this e-bar where there's lots of new devices, new iPads, new Kindles, new computers, and you can go in and try them without a salesman trying to sell you something, and so you can decide which one is best for you and which one you might want to get next when you were able to do so. And then in Alice Springs, it's more than just learning how to keyboard. This is a RoboCup competition held throughout Australia where local teams learn how to teach their robots how to play soccer, how to dance, and then they compete locally up to national competitions. Creating and sharing content, whether it be sharing information on how to weave, how to paint, how to make other things. I know, yes, oh, I'm good. They're doing maker spaces everywhere. You may be familiar with Read in the Pals program, in which grandparents and young children worked together to share the stories of their elders and create books that told those stories. Those books were then printed and distributed through their program. In Lancaster, England, they turned over the library on weekend evenings, and young children brought in music groups from around the area, and they had concerts in the library. Our friend Stuart, who runs this program, reported that many of these young people had never been in the library, but they were happy to come to hear music, and this program helped launch Adele, which is just amazing. Iowa City Public Library decided that they would encourage local musicians to let the library put for free their music on the library's website, so that the library would have that source and the local musicians would get some much-needed publicity. Building community. That's what we're all about. In Finland, they have conversation circles, helping new immigrants to Finland learn how to speak Finnish, and thereby be able to participate in Finnish society. In Rochester Public Library, like many libraries I know in India, they're running a human library program, where in this case you could check out a veteran and hear about his experience serving in the armed forces. But in letting people learn what other people in their community know. In many libraries, in this case Deerfield, they're learning about their history by having cemetery walking tours. They're taking people to local cemeteries, walking through and telling them about the people who had lived in this community years ago, and at the same time creating connections between their current, future, and their past. Louisville runs a 5-hour, 50 Things in One Day event, all free, all run by community members. So you could learn how to make, I love this, simple, safe, and spectacular homemade rockets. Or you could learn how to make a wedding cake on a budget. And in a program similar to that Singapore did a number of years ago, the Singapore Memory Project, Chattanooga in the U.S. is now creating basically a crowdsourced history of their community. They're asking people to share their stories, share their pictures, share their memories, so they'll know where they came from and know where they're going. It's all about making a difference. It's all about aligning your community's needs and your library resources. None of us have enough money, but to the extent we can bring those in alignment, the better our services will be. Thank you.
Thank you, June. Thanks for that interesting look on the new services, etc., that can be provided. Now, I'd request Sri S.C. Beher, who joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1961 and has held a lot of positions with the government of Maharashtra and also with the government of India, where major part of his career has been devoted to education. Over to you, Mr. Beher.
Thank you. Good afternoon, friends. Shortage of time. I'll try to only give you an outline of the potential and possibilities of the people's libraries. I'm not committing a mistake. I'm deliberately saying people's libraries, not public libraries, in transforming society, in sustainable development goals, and in creating knowledge society. I love educational institutions. I love public libraries. Both of them improve the chances of the participant in life. They make them more privileged, able to get greater remuneration in the society. However, both of them intend but fail to make them good human beings. And both of them intend but fail to transform society. Language is a very dangerous instrument. Every word is loaded with values. When we say sustainable development goals, then what are we trying to do is, whatever picture of society you have in development parlance is being still continued, only saying, okay, let us have a caution of sustainability. Development, as you probably most of you know, is a substitute word for what used to be called 100 years ago, progress. And therefore, I am suggesting that we think in terms of a progressive society, where the framework of thinking is not so, shall I say, materialistic, not techno-scientific, but humanistic. And once you start thinking of that, then things fall in very different color. One, we want to make knowledge society. What does that mean? Whose knowledge? Both library and educational institutions give knowledge. But do we want to give knowledge, or do we want to consume knowledge, or do we want to create knowledge? A society which emphasizes creating knowledge is very different from a society where knowledge is being consumed. In what way libraries and educational institutions can play a role in creating knowledge, a society where knowledge is created. What does knowledge mean? Is there no politics of knowledge? Is there no hegemony in knowledge? There is indigenous knowledge. In fact, the president earlier spoke. There is indigenous knowledge. Is that being recognized? Can pyramid be constructed without knowledge? Is not that knowledge being recognized? So basically, when I am saying knowledge society, then it must mean knowledge which is global, knowledge which is also indigenous, and if that is so, then public libraries can perform the role of codifying, obtaining knowledge from the people, rather than only being a storehouse of knowledge from outside to be taken to the people. In that, then, I deliberately said people's. The title is Reaching the Unreached. I will say, it's a very good step, but it's only a step. My vision is people's library, which means library owned by the people. When you reach then you are only giving access to them. You are reaching them and you are giving them access. Do you give them control of the library? Do they manage the library? It will mean transforming the entire concept of public libraries as we have today, the processes, the structures. I am deliberately giving these examples because then I am taking you to further. When you are saying transforming society, in fact the title is Potential and Possibilities. I see a much greater possibility of transforming human beings, transforming people, transforming the society in libraries than in the educational institutions. I will not go to the details, there is no time, but because educational institutions are predetermined, fixed, and everything is something there where the participant has very limited decision-making power. While in the library, you can have much more flexibility. Each individual can have, I would say, her own curriculum, her own way of improving. And there are many other ways in which library can... Thank you. I'll finish. Don't worry. Don't worry, I'll finish. Okay. Libraries can work. However, one must understand that transformation means changing the power distribution and power structure today. It's not an easy task. It's not just doing something innovative. It's not just making them start gardening, making them do a few things. And therefore, what can be done? This can be done much better by the public libraries, also by the educational institution. And what I'm suggesting is, can they play the role of a civil contestation of ideologies, of ideas, where there is contestation, but it is a civil contestation. And how you gradually make it a journey from a questioning mind. When there is a contestation, then each one questions the other. From how do you make the public libraries a place where there is a questioning mind, a challenging mind, which finds response, which finds answers, but many more questions, and this keeps on going, this endless journey of questioning, challenging, finding answer and responses, further questioning, that is something that will bring and transform society. That will be, in my view, a knowledge society where new knowledge is created and you do not only consume knowledge. That is a society where redistributive justice, redistribution can take place, where egalitarian society can come into being, where what you call today underprivileged, weak, disempowered, I use the word disempowered, can get powered again and start in the process of society at an equal footing with everybody else, where the privileges are gone, where we look at a society where everybody has dignity, prestige, freedom, liberty, justice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beher Saab. Interesting. Now, of course, I know I'm standing between you and the lunch, and really appreciate all my panelists for actually, permitting them to indulge with them and pass them the slip saying just 5 minutes more. Thank you very much for honoring my request. Quickly to summarize, I think what we spoke about, and a whole lot of things have been spoken here. I think Professor Mangla, we need to understand from him that it's not only important to sustain, but move further also, and be an active participant. I think this is the message that we all need to carry with us today post this session. Christine, thank you very much for talking about mapping the SDGs along with the country's objectives, as part of our offerings in the public libraries. And in fact, we are very proud that NASSCOM Foundation has been the industry partner for Government of India for digital literacy, and myself am sitting on as part of the IMPART committee and the content creation committee for digital literacy. How IFLA can help, thank you very much for talking about that, and I think we would be reaching out more and more to you for that. A request from Christine to all the people present over here. I think it's important for us to become part of the global voice, and hence please vote. There's the stall outside. I request and urge each one of you to please go there and cast your vote over there so that India becomes also part of the global voice itself. Moving on to Dr. Chakravarti, talking about how 48 crores is going to now 17,000 libraries. To a more important thing is implementation of the legislation of the Act. Libraries Acts are there. Can we convert them into rules? And IPLM would be happy to engage with the state governments and provide them consulting help and other help in framing those rules, as and when required. Collaboration with the state machinery is another important point that has been highlighted by Dr. Chakravarti. And of course, he has given us the Guru Mantra. If you require money, you need to show footfalls. And how do you show footfalls? Reach the unreached. I think that's the Guru Mantra that we are taking from here. June, thank you very much for talking about excellence defined locally, and I think that's very, very relevant to all of us. I think when we talk about our excellence models, it is not replicating something that is good somewhere else, but what will be good locally for me, and that's a very, very important point. Thanks for showcasing to us all the various options of the QR code libraries and others. Sure. Yeah. And of course, the new services being offered, and in fact, I'm very happy to mention over here, and we'll hear from Dr. Tyagi in the afternoon, all CSC services, etc., can be offered through our libraries, public libraries. That's something which already we have discussed and worked upon. Also, some of our libraries over here itself would also become part of the Atal Innovation Mission, where tinkering labs also would be set up in those libraries. So a whole lot of new services, libraries being looked at, moving ahead. And How to Festival was something very interesting, and I think, though we are doing things, but we are not doing 50 such activities, thus creating a buzz in our libraries. I think, this is some idea that all of us should look at what could be those 10, 12, 20 things. And in fact, today, as we are sitting right in midst of the Dan Utsav, which is the Joy of Giving Week in India, which started yesterday with, the Father of Nation, Mahatma Gandhi's birthday, and will continue to the 8th of October. It's my humble submission to all people present over here, and also if you could percolate it down to your friends and communities, etc., that please, India should have a culture of giving. Be whatever it might be. It might be a time, a 2 minutes time, 5 minutes time, 1 hour, 20 hours, whatever it is. You could paint, you could provide food, you could donate books. In fact, IPLM, along with CRISIL during Dan Utsav, is collecting books from across corporates in India, and these are being collected, and these will be given to libraries who can't afford books, rural libraries, etc. So please do that. And coming to Dr. Beher, Mr. Beher, improve the chances in life, and that's what we should be able to give to our members. Transform society by questioning what we are doing and how does it fit in. And of course, the major thing which IPLM believes in is how libraries can become people's libraries. I think that sums it up. Thank you very much, and I'm sure that all of you would be happy that we're just about 15 minutes late. So thank you very much, panelists. With your help, we have been able to bring down the delay. Sure.
My dear friends, since it's a professional meeting, one thing which I want to mention very specifically, spreading out message for public libraries, state government legislation, they're all accepted. We have been talking about it. I want to mention one important point where IPLM can be a little of help to us in the profession. Earlier, the Department of Culture used to be a department under the Ministry of Education, which later on became Ministry of Human Resource Development. Now, Ministry of Culture is different, is separate from Ministry of Human Resource Development. Why I'm mentioning about it, the other day I gave an interview on the Doordarshan, which I highlighted and people agreed. Sometime in 70s, we started a movement which was called Adult Education Program. In 90s, the Ministry of HRD started a program which is called National Literacy Mission, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. All of you will agree that creating literacy relapses into illiteracy if people do not have the facility to go to a public library or to a library where they can maintain their literacy by reading, by interacting, by studying. Now the difficulty is that Ministry of HRD, after creating the literacy mission, does not bother what is happening to the people who are getting literacy, whether they have the facilities in the villages, in the rural areas, where they can go and make use of a public library. And when we talk to them, they say public library is not our area. You have to talk to the Ministry of Culture, and Ministry of Culture has its own limitations. I want some mechanism to be developed between Ministry of Culture and Ministry of HRD, which used to be combined together earlier, which have been separated, and that gap continues because the spread of public library movement comes under Ministry of Culture, and HRD should also collaborate in maintaining literacy on which they are spending millions of rupees, and this is where I want that a recommendation should be formulated, and IPLM can be of great help to us, where they can highlight by making these two ministries. Mr. Javadekar was talking about his importance and the role, and Dr. Sharma understands all this, but a collaboration needs to be developed in order there is no separatism, but a combined effort to develop public library movement in the country. Thank you.
Thank you. I have been told by the organizer that yes, we have time for just 2 quick questions. Only questions, no comments, no statements. Please introduce yourself. Your question should be not more than 2 lines. The gentleman over there, yes. There are some mics, yeah.
I am Saurabh Devnan from DITC. My question to Dr. Chakraborty sir. Sir, we know that RRLF is funding to the public libraries. And to reach the services to the grassroots level, we also need the dynamic LIS proportion. But recently in West Bengal, government said that 1100 retired librarians will be re-employed on a contractual basis. So what about the new dynamic professionals coming into the picture? And does not have the RRLF any opinion about the recruitment of the public libraries? Thank you.
Okay. Next question. Okay. The gentleman over there. Can we have a mic there, please?
So again, RRLF, since it is funding, can they fix any standard and say, look, we will only fund if your library is of this standard? So
there are standards which Dr. Chakravarti will share with you. Anyone else? Okay, great. So, Arun, over to you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. You see, in my opinion remarks already I told that library is a state subject. So it has to be collaborated with this. So any state government, whatever their policy, we cannot do anything on that policy. We just can recommend of these are much required or these are the standards. But I told you now that we have a different, what you call legislation, law, etc. So that has to be looked after by the states and by the people. So those things has to be taken by the people. That's not the RLF. We are not, cannot tell anybody because it is a central government. Ministry of Culture is an autonomous organization. So the state government has to take up all the issues. That is the state issues. Okay.
I think we can take this discussion over lunch. Yeah. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for such a patient hearing, and apologize for the delay. Can we have a big round of applause for these wonderful panelists?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha. If I could request you to please present tokens of appreciation to all our guests, and we've got the books coming out. First to Professor Mangla. To Ms. McKinsey. To Mr. Chakraborty. To Ms. Garcia. And to Mr. Behar. We also have one for you, sir. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got lunch outside on the lawns. We're also cutting short the time for lunch, so you just have 45 minutes for lunch. Please be back here on time. And as you go out, as you have been urged before, to please step aside from lunch and from your other schedules to please go and vote at the exhibition outside. We've got a stall that you need to go and visit and cast your vote. The stall is Vote for Global Vision, and please register your vote there. It just requires a few seconds of your time, and you have the support of the IPLM volunteers there. Please take your bags with you. We will not be able to take care of your belongings if you leave them behind. Thank you very much. Please be back here in 45 minutes. Thank you.